Okay, my name is Jason Guyett. Thank you guys so much for joining. Here I have Emily Gooding from Toronto, Canada. Such a pleasure. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually in Ottawa, is right where the
Right.
TXC headquarters is. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you over these couple months, and you joining in on my lockdown training camp. It's been so nice.
It's been awesome. No, I couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. You've been so awesome. Yeah, like I said, such a great character. Please tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself as long or as little as you want.
Yeah, so my name is Emily. Oh, where do I start? So my background's actually in nursing. I tell people I went into nursing because I wanted to help people just feel better and move better. And I've always just been interested in health. So nursing was like the logical step to go into because that's what your guidance counselor will tell you to do in high school. And I think like when I started nursing school, I was also a personal trainer, part-time at a local gym. And it was something that I just continued to do. When I was done nursing school, while I was a nurse working full time, I just continued to do personal training. It was something that I enjoyed a lot. And then my personal training business kind of just took off to the point where I had to quit my hospital job. I dropped to part-time for nursing. And I'm just happy to say, like in the next 2 weeks, I'll be quitting nursing fully. So yeah, it's been a long
Wow.
journey to get here, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I wouldn't define myself as like a personal trainer. I think my view of training has really shifted over the years and with my own personal health journey. But yeah, I'd say more of like a health guide and just helping people get to their best version of themselves. So that's what I do now. We're obviously with the lockdowns and everything, I don't see people in person as much. So most of the things I've been doing is switching to doing things virtually. Sorry about that, teaching courses and stuff like that as well. I'm just going to get rid of all of this. Yeah, so yeah, it's been quite a transition, but I'm really missing the in-person things that I do and just really connecting with people one-on-one. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'm curious. So, like, was it right after high school you decided to get into training, or kind of what was the
So
timeline on
I guess
that?
I've kind of always been involved in it. So growing up, I did karate. And then, naturally, like in karate, you end up starting to teach like the younger kids and you just
Mhm.
go with that. So yeah, my journey really started with martial arts. So even further than that. So I did karate, and then I started doing Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was in university. And it just led me into this path of I really enjoyed it. I wanted to help people feel healthier. So coaching, I think, has always been something that I've been passionate about. It's something that I enjoy doing and just kind of sharing the things that I love with other people. So it's just something I continued to do, and I just love it. So yeah.
Please, I know because I've nerded out on this before a lot before, but the reason you're shifting more into training as opposed to your RN position, because I know and it's brilliant, but yeah, for anyone watching.
Yeah. So like, I mean, shifting into that, it's a big move. And most people I talk to, like, they're like, why would you quit nursing? And it's a steady, stable job. But I mean, we all know that we like nurses just don't get treated well. And the other thing too is when I worked at the hospital, I just felt like I was working within a system that was just broken. And just constantly having people come in and then not actually fixing their health problems. We're just putting band-aids and then sending them back into the world. And it just didn't feel right. In Canada, we spend 10% of our healthcare dollars on preventative care. The 90% of it is put towards tertiary care, waiting for something bad to happen and then reacting to it. And it just didn't align with my philosophy in health. I just felt stuck, and I felt like I couldn't help people the way that I knew I could when I was training people. I used to train people out of my apartment in my dining room, and I felt like I was doing a better job being a nurse there than I was at the hospital. So yeah, I quit my job and just did that. And I mean, especially now with the pandemic, and the nurses are just working so hard. So um, I'm grateful that I'm out of that right now. It's a really, really tough job. But I feel like I make more of an impact doing what I do here than I did at the hospital.
Because you were in the trauma unit, correct? Did you branch out at all, or pretty much strictly?
Yeah, I started off in the trauma unit. I've worked in a number of other settings as well. I've worked at like flu vaccination clinics. I currently work at an integrative cancer center, which I really, really love working there. It's just my business has kind of expanded to the point where I can't balance all of it. But I really love it there. So we do like integrative cancer therapy. So I don't give chemo or like traditional like cancer treatments, but what we do is we give supportive therapy. So we work on like their nutrition, work on mental health. I do like IV therapies. So it's a whole integrative plan, and really how can we support people while they're going through these conventional cancer treatments, and support them in other ways other than just medicine. So I really like that. Yeah, it's really cool. So I love working there, and I think it's just a sweet job to have as a nurse. So I think I got really lucky, and it's a really great work environment. I never thought I would work somewhere like that as a nurse. And when you're in nursing school, they kind of push you towards working at a hospital. Everything you learn is very hospital oriented. And you get pushed, all your placements are at hospitals, most of them at least. But there's so many other things you can do as a nurse. You can work in public health. I've worked in long-term care facilities as well. So it's been a very eye-opening experience, especially like working throughout the pandemic in long-term care facilities, and just recognizing there's just huge gaps in our healthcare system. So what I'm doing now, I feel like fills some of those gaps. And then what I'm doing with TFC and working on that Heart of Hindenburg project too. And I could talk about that a little bit more if you'd like.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So, and I just feel like what I'm doing now really helps me fill those gaps, and is a push in the right direction towards where we need to go. It's a tough, like it's really easy for me to just be like, I could work in a hospital, I can get my paycheck. So I've obviously chosen a much more difficult route, but I love it. I love every second of it.
Are you though? Like, because honestly, I mean, a lot of foot nerds, health nerds in our position, a lot of the time I feel when we encounter, because obviously hospital setting's a little bit different from me being an RMT. There's some pathologies that you won't be able to, again, just say like, hey, like, let's massage this out, or let's give you this movement exercise and things, of course. But a lot of the time, I totally feel like there'd be something where it's just like, I know what would help you, but this position that I'm in is I'm in such a rush. I need to get to my next patient. I need to do this. For me, this person just wants to get massaged. I have other tricks up my sleeve, but they're here in pain for a massage, so they want that sort of thing. So you're always handcuffed in those certain positions, and it's probably exactly how you feel.
Yeah. And I look at like physicians too that have to deal with the same thing, that they're very knowledgeable, highly educated, and highly skilled. But when you're in a system where you can only see, people for 6 minutes at a time, you're really limited to what you can do. And you feel like you do need to give someone something. And we often resort to medicine.
Losing that human aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to close the door. Sorry, I'm such a mess.
No worries.
Yeah.
So that kind of adds into from you leaving more so nursing, because I would love to hear about how your time management skills and how you shuffled everything, which again, good for you, because it's not an easy leap to take to kind of shift from one thing to another to give your full attention to it. But ultimately that'll be like the best outcome you get. So what kind of led to that decision and stuff?
Yes, I think in terms of time management, things are actually a lot better, because I used to work full time at the hospital and I worked shift work. So it was a whole, like, nighttime management was just like, I managed, but it was bad. I'd come off of a 12-hour night shift and then have a client at home that I'd see at 8 a.m. And then I'd go to sleep for a couple hours and then go back to a night shift, or I'd see a client before going to my night shift. So then that's when I really started to recognize when sleep was really important. So now that I don't work shift work, time management is much better, just because I have a little bit more predictability to my days and my weeks. I try to allocate time, like slots of time for each thing that I do, but I do still find that I struggle with time management. And I think whenever I start to feel that way, because the feeling that I had when I worked at the hospital was like burnout. And that feeling, I'm always constantly reminded of that. So whenever I'm approaching close to that, which is not a great thing, but whenever I do approach that feeling of burnout, I have to take a step back and reevaluate my priorities, because there's a lot that goes on, and I need to make sure that I prioritize well. And so I'll take 2 days off every once in a while just for reflection.
Nice.
reorganize my priorities, see what needs to be there, what fulfills my mission and what fulfills my goals, and then get rid of everything else.
That's something that never really came to my mind, how especially like new nurses where they don't really get the weight on the matter of, yeah, so your night shift, sorry. So, and like how, I mean, it didn't come to my mind of TFC's like pillars of health sort of thing, how it is absolutely destroying your sleep and how important that can be with your work. And so, yeah, it's the same kind of thing as how some people are stuck in steel-toed boots sort of a thing. And if they're uncomfortable and they have to wear it for their work though. So it's one of those things where you're really anchored down to that. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, just when I remember when I quit, I stopped working night shifts, like automatically. It just felt better when I felt better. I lost 5 pounds without doing anything, and I knew it was just like the bloating. And I think whenever I worked a night shift, I would eat an extra meal. Everything just gets all messed up, and yeah, my cycles, like my menstrual cycles, were all messed up too. And it was one of the tipping points for me when I decided I really needed to make that change. For myself, I was actually on a night shift. It was 3 a.m, and I'm in the cafeteria with the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And I was just like, oh my God, just like in tears reading this book. Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Right now.
Oh my gosh. It was so, I was like,
It is.
My goodness, what the heck? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wake up call, not pun intended.
Yeah. So when after I read that book, I was like, I gotta get out of here. This is brutal. Like I can't like take care of people when I can't even take care of myself. And I just know that I'm not doing a good job taking care of people if I can't even take care
Well,
of
and then
them.
there's also that moral decision of all the money put into this education and stuff, and like, oh, I paid money for this and stuff. So like I said, not an easy decision. So congrats, good for you.
Yeah,
Because
thank you very much. Yeah, and I think I always knew that I wasn't going to be a nurse for my whole life. It was just like a really good way for me to get into the healthcare system and really get and it's crazy. Like when you work in a hospital, like the stuff that you see is completely wild. It's so eye-opening. And I think it was really important that I went through those experiences, like working in these long-term care facilities during a pandemic, working in trauma units and really just seeing what our current healthcare system looks like. Because I think it just gives me a deeper understanding of what's actually going on. And I think I can speak a little bit better on both sides of the story and really respectfully understand what we're actually going through. Because it's really easy to say, like, we need to change things. But like when you're working like over, like your shift is so, we can't make these changes. It's really hard to do. When the hospital's working at 115% capacity all the time. So, understanding both sides of the story, I think is really important. So my nursing career has really given me insight into like what the capacity of nurses is and what we can do with it in the future, but also what we're currently going through and what we're experiencing.
that's fantastic. Absolutely helping with that open mind aspect that I love so much. That's awesome. Yeah. Because, and again, you'll never ever regret the education you have. Like you have that, it's yours. It's just what you kind of do with it now. So you can still implement that into your training and just like, again, like health coach in general and stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then also just kind of knowing where people, like I work with a lot of people with chronic pain right now and with who have had injuries or have been in car accidents, and working in the trauma unit. That's all I did was work with people who have been in traumatic accidents. But the thing is, like, once they got discharged, which is often, I think the average discharge was 7 days. So after 7 days, like I didn't really know what happened to people. And oftentimes now I see it on the other side where they'll go home and really nothing happens. And they might have to sit down all day long and they don't move very well. I'll give you an example. Like one guy I had, he had a stroke and he contacted me, and he was a guy that I used to train back in the day, and he was running marathons at this. And yeah, he had a stroke and then he was in a wheelchair, and they just sent him home like that. And they're like, you're in a wheelchair forever now. That's about it. And then I'm like, well, you're really early on in your stroke. And he was able to still move his feet a little bit. So we started doing toga. We started doing like rolling out his foot on a lacrosse ball and just really getting him to feel different types of textures. And then now he's walking with a walker. And I feel like there's like that missing part there where we're just like putting band-aids on things, move on. And I feel like there's a lot of those gaps, and I would love to fill them.
Love it. When was it you kind of found TFC in that case, the Foot Collective? Was that just because you were kind of literally in the area and you kind of heard about it, or was it your personal training that got you into it?
So it was actually because I was going to train this guy, this particular man who reached out to me because of my background. So I talked to an old professor. He wasn't even my professor. He was one of Vince's professors who he's in FNT. And I know that professor in particular, he had suffered a stroke and he like rehabbed himself back. And I wanted to pick his brain about what I could do to train this client and help him. And he pointed me to a bunch of resources and he's like, oh, you should check out TFC. Like, very cool. I'll check them out, because I also was experiencing foot pain at the same time, working 12-hour shifts in a hospital. So I'm like, this is the bonus. And then I didn't know what to expect. I didn't follow the Foot Collective at that point. Like, I had no idea what I was in for. I just signed up, went to a seminar, and it was completely life-changing, because like within a week, my plantar fasciitis went away. It was something that I was like living with for a long time while just working at the hospital. And so, when we talk about, I was having foot pain to the point where Vince bought me a foot massager for Christmas, because I would complain about it all the time and I didn't know what to do. And then people kept telling me buying more supportive shoes. And it just wasn't working. So I just felt really lost. And then I was told to buy orthotics because we had coverage for it. But it just didn't make any sense to me. So once I did that, the seminar, and then, I bought new shoes that day. All I did was implement the toe mobility, the foot mobility, and then like just rolling up my feet every day, just fixed it completely. And I was just sold. And then I started to really think about the conventional ways that we look at health, and just kind of see like how a lot of it doesn't really make sense. And starting at the feet, where like we talk about orthotics, it didn't make sense to me at all. So yeah, after learning about the feet and how we can take very natural approaches to healing the feet, like what else can we do? What else in our life really like has been dictated by big corporations that are destined to make money? And how can we change that? Like, recently I just got rid of my bed altogether, because I was just like, I don't know, it didn't make any sense to me. I felt better when I was sleeping on the floor. We weren't really designed to sleep on clouds. So it made me reevaluate everything. It made me a much more critical thinker. I ask a lot more questions now, and I think it just made me a better coach in general.
That is so funny to say that, because like I said, literally all these things are just like I got a shiki buton, like a Japanese futon.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I got too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and it's like again, I have this weird hip thing going on. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not sure if it's from that and stuff, but like I've never suffered from low back pain, but it's still crazy how like that first night just kind of like, oh, whoa, things are weird and stuff. So that's what I mean is like, oh, like just the ground living and stuff too. I know you're exactly the same. It's like stand up sometimes, sit on the floor and everything is just so like just opening up your hips and just keep moving and don't just be sedentary. And there's all these ergonomic desk chairs and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, like it's good for you if you need to sit that long, but you shouldn't be sitting that long. Like if anything, it like enabling you to be sitting there for that long. So
oh yeah, exactly. I hate the word ergonomic.
I know.
Every time I hear someone say ergonomic, it just like you know what I mean? It just, everything just clenches. Yeah. Yeah, that's the main source of my like muscle tightness now. It's just
exactly right. So I'm curious, are you back and forth with minimalist shoes? Or are you pretty much just barefoot and minimalist shoes now, or
barefoot? I haven't even worn. I actually like it was a big topic that I struggled with, because I have to. My cousin's getting married next weekend,
right?
And I wanted people to wear a particular shoe.
Oh.
Oh my goodness, like I'm struggling with it. I purposely picked a dress that was long enough that maybe I can go barefoot.
Nice.
Yeah, I really I just can't go back. It's painful to go back.
Because again, it's good that you're eventually not going to be working like long shifts at the hospital and stuff. What was it you were wearing for those shifts?
Yeah, so I started off wearing, like, I just kept wearing more and more supportive shoes that,
right.
I go to a shoe store and they're like, this one is excellent for nurses. It rocks and it doesn't move. Yeah. It's completely cushioned. I'm like, okay, that's okay. Look at that. And it just destroyed my feet. So I eventually just switched over to a Bevo barefoot.
Right.
shoe, and it's super nice wide toe box. So the first week of transitioning over, and mind you, like I spent a lot of time barefoot anyways, like doing Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. I spent all my time at home barefoot. So the only time I started experiencing foot pain was at the hospital when I was on my feet in supportive shoes for 12 hours a day. Despite like on the days that I wasn't working, I was on my feet anyways, and it was fine. So it was only whenever I had supportive shoes. So I switched over to a Vivo barefoot shoe, and then like, yeah, within a week, my foot pain went away. It took a little bit of time. Like I felt the muscles in my feet having to develop and support itself. And I think that's where people go wrong with it, where they'll like, I don't, it hurts to not wear my shoes. But I'm like, well, it's just like anything else. And the analogy I always give people, it's like, if you wouldn't go into a gym after not going to a gym for like 30 years and then go and try to squat 400 pounds, it's just a stupid thing to do. And you also wouldn't do it all day. You would need to give yourself time to rest. You would need to stretch, do your mobility work as well. So yeah, your feet are the same thing. Your feet are just muscles, ligaments, bones, tendons, blood vessels, and nerve endings. So why treat it any different than the rest of your body, right? You're going to strengthen it by loading it, by standing barefoot, by walking around. But you also need to give it time to rest, and you also need to give it time to recover with mobility work. So yeah, I think that's where, so once I started teaching people, there was a bunch of nurses that actually switched over too, and started wearing barefoot shoes. Like there was a bunch of PSWs wearing the Vibram 5-finger shoes. Yeah. So
After seeing you doing it?
Yeah. And then they were like,
oh, that's a good feeling, right?
Like I actually recently did a, for CHEO, which is like the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, I did a lunch and learn where we just did like foot health for healthcare workers, and got a lot of people show up because most healthcare workers have crappy feet. And I don't think it was at all what they were expecting, but they were like, holy crap, like I did not realize. And yeah, so I got a lot of messages after that, and I've had a couple other hospitals in Ontario reach out now to have me do some courses for their
awesome.
So it's really cool because it's like, it's nice to kind of come around full circle and give back to the community in that way. Because yeah, I know like I struggled with it, and I was lucky enough to have the resources to learn about it. But when you're at the hospital, what they tell you is just like orthotics, and you have coverage for it. So it's the easiest solution. Yeah.
Wow, couldn't have said it better. Seriously, holy. Like I said, although you're leaving nursing, you still will be like in that field and stuff, which I think is awesome too. But like I said, so well spoken and so know your stuff that you got so more intertwined with TFC and stuff too. Been doing podcasts with people like Nick and everything too. And please talk about Heart of Hindenburg and stuff too. Is this your idea, anyone else's, or what's all this about?
Oh yeah, it's Nick's idea. I love the idea, and basically what it is, it's a community project. We can kind of take it anywhere, but the way I describe it is it's kind of like a cool experiment that we're doing on the community, and with the ultimate end goal of making Hindenburg a blue zone.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
Super cool. I know. So and what we're doing is just like anything that works. Does this work? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's try this now. And then so it's just it's like a lab, and we get to experiment with all of these cool community health projects. So right through like the events that we're going to be organizing. So where we're thinking of, for example, doing little local concerts featuring local Hindenburg artists and bringing the community together, just developing community, because as you know, community has a huge role in the way we feel and our health, and we're seeing that a lot more now with COVID. So it'll be really fun to organize those events. I don't know if you've ever heard of like the NPR Tiny Desk series. I'll send them to you. They're awesome.
Awesome.
Basically, it's a small library, and they get these big, awesome bands to come and play like a 3 or 4 song set list. So the idea we had was to have the truck bed and have little concerts on the truck bed, and we can have them anywhere in Hindenburg. So, through those events that we organize, we're going to do community like barefoot walks, doing some health coaching, just connecting people, bringing them to restaurants, and really just connecting as many people as we can, and learning about how important community is in health. Because I think we've got everything else covered. We've always got our physical wellness covered. There's enough resources out there for nutrition. We know that sleep is important. We know that mental health is important. But how can we improve the health of a community through bringing people together. And I think that's what's really unique about this project. So I'm really excited to be working on it. And yeah, basically I'm going to be replacing all of the time I spend nursing with Heart of Hintonburg. And yeah, I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to it. And it's been great working with Nick. He's just like, he's just great to work with. I haven't never met people in this community that are just so passionate about what they do and such hard workers. So yeah, it's been great to work with him.
I love that so much. I before we started, we were talking about how I would want to visit Toronto to like meet some of these awesome people that are in the area and stuff. Yeah. I'm gonna have to move there one day to be able to join in on that.
Yeah, you're gonna become in Ottawa. Awesome. For sure.
Unless I have to copy the idea and start doing it here or something too, because that is just so
and then that's
nice.
The other thing. Our goal too is to, as we're doing this and experimenting, we're finding out what works and what doesn't work. We're creating templates so that all of these ideas and these community projects will be able to be replicated around the world. How can you create a healthy, integrated community and have that template to do so? So how do you meet the local MPs in your community? How can you connect different resources? How can you reach out to people? Like what works? And so we're going to have all these templates put together so that this can be replicated anywhere and give people.
Such a cool idea. Yeah. Oh man. So I'm incorporating into your training and things too. What all I know, the term toga, I hear from you all the time and things. I love that. It's something I've started incorporating into some things with my students and things as well. And they're always interested. It's like, oh, that sounds funny and stuff. And it's totally like the perfect engaging word to kind of get people like, huh, what's that? And they want to do it. You've branched out into like animal flow and things too. I'd love to hear about, because like I said, animal flow is a type of kind of like move. I'll have you explain it. I'd butcher it.
Yeah. Animal flow. It's a ground-based movement system, and all of the moves in the system are usually kind of named after an animal, resembles something that an animal would do. So you'd have something like a beast position, which is like a quadruped position. You might have something like an ape where you're on 2 feet with your arms out. Crab where you're on your hand, you're in a kind of supinated position on your hands and feet, and you can move from there. And the whole flow, like you can move back and forth between these and put together these cool flows that are very challenging. They take a lot of stability. They take a lot, it requires a lot of strength and coordination and stamina as well. So I wanted something that could kind of help complement my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training, because again, it's all ground-based movement. So I'm like, oh, but if I could like get stronger on the ground, this would be beneficial to me. I also like the fact that there's no equipment required, so very low, there's no barriers to entry. And I thought that was a good thing for my clients to learn about. I try my best to make everything as accessible as possible, because, I grew up with people who didn't have access to these things. So for me, access to health resources is very, very important. So I saw animal flow is a really good way that I can bring more accessibility into the world of movement.
It's so true, because when you were incorporating into some of your lockdown training camp and stuff that we were doing, is because I've played with it a little bit, but I haven't gotten really good at combining the movements as you talk about. I just kind of like do some of them, and it is crazy how like you get that nice burning sensation in your shoulders if you're fixing those scapulas and kind of like doing it the correct way that you're supposed to like powerfully do it. And it's crazy how, like, again, I wouldn't say I have weak shoulders necessarily by any means, but it is crazy how like without gym equipment and like it is all ground functional movement, which and like for me, I was a big gym nut when I was in high school and things. Like I loved it. You had access to it though. It was great. After, unless you want to be paying to get to a gym, yeah, they can. It's for some people, but for me, I really dove into this like spiral of like not looking out for my health kind of after high school, and just not. You didn't pay for gym membership. You didn't do that. You don't have access to a gym, so what are you going to do? Is like the going thing. So I think it's so important to kind of like, you don't need this stuff, and I think that's why it's gaining so much traction. It's awesome because it is just kind of like get down on the ground, dude, and it's amazing how much you feel it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really also enjoyed the art form of it too. It was just really cool to look at. And you see people doing all these amazing flows like, this just looks really cool, and you can be creative with it too. So it's another way that you can test your creativity, and you can play with it. So I love that aspect of it too, because it's like you play around with movement. How can you test out these flows? How can you combine them? How can you like make one? It's almost like designing a choreography for yourself. So I love the fact that, you know, there's strength training involved in it. There's mobility work that's involved. There's coordination, there's timing, and then there's that art form to it. And then there's that sense of play. So all the things that I really love about training, it's all integrated into that movement system, which is why I decided, I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn about it. And I've been meaning to do it for a long time, but then they offered an online program. Funny story about that. While I was in the course, it was all virtual through Zoom. My puppy was really young at the time, and he like turned his butt towards the camera and just took a shit on on the mats, and I had to like move my camera away, like clean it. I was so bad.
Was there a bunch of people taking it with you, or?
Yeah, there was like 30 people in the class.
Oh man.
They just all like
I thought you were gonna be like, it's like, oh, there's an actual animal in the animal flow class or something. Like, no, that's not where that story went.
No, not at all.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. There's, like I said, there's so much I probably want to talk about. Things just slip in my mind. Because you're just such a fascinating person. Like I love all the routes you're taking with all, like, because ground-based living and things, and like just sharing with the community and being so vocal and talking with people and do, like, you're just an inspiration to people. I love that.
Thanks, Jason.
Absolutely. So
one thing that I learned from you, actually, and I started doing recently, because I watched your video on how you taped your mouth.
Right.
For a month. So I've been doing that the past couple nights, which was inspired by you. And it's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, if you thought Why We Sleep is good, you should try that breath book. It is life-changing. Like, I did the video like this with my friend as well. It was a very good book. Like I said, he's a journalist, like no like formal education necessarily on the matter, but because he just nerded out on the topic like we kind of do in things as well, he has the really, he moves his words really well being a journalist while having the information, basing it off other people, and it was fantastic. I think I blew through the book in like 3 days or something. It was crazy. And that's where that experiment came from.
Nestor?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I've read it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was so good. And like I said, that's exactly where it came from, and it was interesting to play with. Like I said, plays the way, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And that's what TFC kind of got me more into as well. And like out of that non-movement slump is to have fun with this stuff, and hence where beans come in as well. And like you don't need to work out, and like it is difficult to get motivation to weight train is a thing. But if you're not weight training, you're just having fun and you're putting some music on and like move sort of thing. You don't need to weight train to be healthy. So
yeah,
awesome. So the daunting question, do you have any kind of like quotes or things you live by and stuff that you could mind sharing?
Yeah, so I mentioned to you earlier that I have a good story about that. So when I was in the nursing pinning ceremony, I think this quote still applies, so I'm going to use this quote still. Okay. Yeah, I was doing my nursing pinning ceremony, and in the ceremony, when you walk across the stage, they'll put up a baby photo of yourself and your graduation photo, and a quote that you've chosen. And I thought, like, I don't know, I went with a funny one, but everyone else, like, I was sandwiched in between these like very inspirational quotes with, you know, that they were just lovely and they're dedicated to people. And then mine was, live every day like a day without poop on your scrubs. And I think that still applies for me today. Like, I think, especially with everything that's going on, it's really easy to see the negative side of everything. One thing that working in a cancer center has taught me, you know, I work with people who are so well acquainted with the idea of death that it's really opened my eyes to what is the most meaningful thing in life. And they're very much like, they've taught me like to appreciate all of these little things that you have in your life. Look at the beautiful day that we have outside. Look at the beautiful people we're surrounded by. The fact that we can walk, we can move, like all of these things. So I think just being really appreciative and recognizing that every day that you can take in all these little moments, that they're so crucial, they're so important. And if we can see the beauty and all of these things, we're going to be at a good place.
So nice. Have you ever gone into like any like Buddhism or Taoism, things like that kind of too?
No,
not too much.
I haven't dove into it that much. I do feel that if I were to, yeah, I'd say I'm pretty agnostic in that way. And I do love to learn about as many religions as I can and kind of take little pieces of it and fill my own.
Love that. Exactly the same way.
Yeah, the same way.
Whatever worked for you.
Yeah, yeah, that like, when you're a kid and you had to make your soda and you would pick every single one. That's the way I treat religion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to kind of touch on last minute and stuff. Thank you so much for being here. It was awesome. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your weekend.
You as well. And to everyone else watching, thank you so much for joining, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.